Hello, everyone. It's Erin again. It's crazy to think that this is week 7, and here we are putting it all together. I decided for this poster activity to utilize the collaboration tool of Padlet. It's a tool that I was a little familiar with. It has changed a lot since the last time I used it, and so I was interested to give it a shot. I did struggle with finding the kind of right resource to use. And I like this one's ease of linking to the other collaboration tools that I'm going to be sharing with you. So, for my philosophy for online teaching, I decided to create a Poplet, which I reviewed in the previous module. So when I go ahead to click on that, I'm going to head to Poplet. And here you will find my online teaching philosophy. So I see a beautiful picture of myself and what I feel is my role as an online educator would be. So the first role would be to build a classroom community, and there's a lot that falls underneath of that. The first bubble that comes off of that is a quote from the text on page 31. It says, "It is important for teachers to establish a nurturing environment where students feel connected and empowered to participate and take risks." That's not only in an online environment, that really resonates with me, even in the face-to-face learning environment that I teach in currently. Um, it also leads to my next bubble about growth mindset. Over the summer in my courses, I was introduced to Carol Dweck and Joe Bowler, mainly Carol Dweck's idea of a growth mindset, encouraging students that making mistakes is okay. Your brain actually grows more when you make a mistake, and that we learn from failures and things like that, and just the power of yet. So I just put that little bubble there just because that's would be included no matter what setting I would be teaching in. Additionally, under building a classroom community, I put open communication. And with that, Rice states on page 32 that establishing open lines of communication between you and your students is essential to the learning process. So I was actually, I would expect that in an online learning environment, you would have to be pretty available for your students, their parents, keeping those lines of communication open to ensure that your students have every opportunity for success. The next kind of little blurb would be to facilitate collaboration. And this one was found throughout the book in multiple places. So I just chose a few quotes that kind of went along with facilitating collaboration. Another big bubble that came off of that was ensuring that learner autonomy or learner-centered activities. So the first one here says, "Learning occurs through thinking, and thinking, not teachers or technology, mediates learning." And that was a quote that Rice provided by Montgomery and Whiting. And I thought that was very interesting because a lot of times teachers feel like they need to be the focal point, and it's kind of hard to loosen up the reins a little bit and allow students to take control or have more say in their education. So I thought that that was pretty interesting, that it's not only teachers and technology that facilitate learning. As far as learner-centered, when we take a look at this quote here, it says, "Encourage students to take responsibility for their own learning and following individual paths that are engaging, motivating, and meaningful to them." And student choice is huge, right? In order to keep students motivated and engaged, they need to have a say in their own education, and that would definitely be something that I would take into consideration in an online setting, even the setting that I teach in now. And lastly, what path to learning best suits this particular student at this point in time? Differentiation, creating individualized paths, allowing students to work and learn at the pace, at the level that they are at currently. And my last little bubble over here would be to foster innovation and creativity. There wasn't much in the book as far as that, but I wanted to include that because I thought it was important. Giving students control, that goes back to learner-centered, allowing student choice, providing scaffolding, and implementing or creating time for meaningful reflection. Reflection is huge for students learning and progressing. And lastly, just a little bit about project-based learning. That's where I think where things are heading That's where I want my own instruction to head. So in an online learning environment, I would do my best to make sure I'm including project-based learning as well. That's my online teaching philosophy. So we'll go back to my Padlet. Moving on to an example lesson, I just wrote a little blurb here, and then I'm going to quickly go over just a portion of what that might look like. So throughout this course, my mind has been stretched to consider what makes good teaching good, especially in an online setting. I have been challenged to examine my own lessons and critique them based on the UDL principles, accessibility handbook, and for effectiveness in an online learning environment. There was a plethora of collaboration tools we examined. When thinking about an online lesson I might teach, I like to look at lessons that I've done in my brick and mortar environment and adapt them. So in the video, which I plan on posting here in my Padlet later, I want to demonstrate how I would use a learning management system to engage with students and an interactive whiteboard to assess student work in progress. So I posted a link there for an interactive whiteboard. I reviewed interactive whiteboard in an earlier module as well. I'm not going to open up BB Collaborate. That would be the learning management system that I would see myself using. Obviously, it would depend on what was offered through my program. But what I would see myself, I'm looking at the unit that I'm teaching right now. We're learning to do US traditional multiplication, and we've moved on to 2 by 2 digits today, or this week. And so I'm going to look at how would I do that in an online setting. Well, first I would have students meet synchronously on the learning management system. We would discuss some of our strategies for 2 by 1 multiplication, 3 by 1 multiplication. I have a really awesome song for long multiplication that I would share with the students because I'm a big fan of trying to find those cheesy videos or cheesy songs to get students engaged and, maybe having that click in their head, the steps for various math concepts and skills. And then in the learning management system, I would either utilize the interactive whiteboard or the online whiteboard in there, or I would link out to an interactive whiteboard. I would utilize one first to do a demonstration, which is what I'm going to show you. And then I could see myself creating multiple interactive whiteboards where students could, in breakout groups, be working on solving a problem and listing the steps to solving that problem, or one student could solve the problem, the other student would analyze the problem and maybe help them fix mistakes or point out what they did well. So we're just going to take a look at that quickly. I'm going to click on this link. I should have it pulled up so you can see another view. And here we have the interactive whiteboard. And on the little post-it note right here, it says, using US traditional multiplication, solve 32 times 47. Use an estimate to check that your answer is correct. So I could do this as a demonstration. If we already learned 2 by 2, I could post this into a breakout group, have a few students work on this. You could even section it off so let's say I wanted to section it off. I could have one student working over here, and we could have one student working over here. Oops, that's my wonderful name. Things like that. I'm going to go ahead and erase that and show you what I would also have students, if I were using this for demonstration purposes. I could record this and post it for students to come back to, so asynchronously, not really live with me, but going back and referring to this video later. I would write the problem. First, it says, I teach my students that making the estimate is important. So we would make the estimate and estimate 32 to 30, 47 to 50, and using our mental math skills, we would come up with our estimate of 1,500. Now it's slowly showing up on the screen. I'm doing it on my tablet. And then we would write the problem, being careful to try and keep it in line, even though we know that interactive whiteboards aren't always the easiest to be neat on. And we would practice using different colors for multiplying each of the digits. And I would look for these strategies if I was demonstrating or if I was assessing their completion of this task, checking in for a little formative assessment check. Do they understand how to multiply 2 by 2? They're showing me the work because I know, and if they're not face to face with me, how do I know that they don't have a calculator off to the side? It would be checking for these types of strategies and ensuring the work is clearly shown. So, using our different colors, carrying digits, switching colors when we move to the tens. When we move to the tens, we put our 0 here to hold our place. I'm just going to go quickly. And then lastly, adding it all together. I would hope, and one of my strategies when I have students go back to check to see if their answer makes sense, link our answer to our estimate, draw a smiley if we're good to go. So I'm going to give that a second just to show up. Seems like it might be a little bit delayed. Either way, if it doesn't, there we go. So that might be me demonstrating, or I would go on and check student work again. So just the interactive whiteboard tools would be huge for any math instruction. So that's just a little glimpse at how I would probably use that. So we're going to go back to my Padlet. Integrating synchronous, asynchronous, and collaboration tools. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit, so if I start talking fast, sorry. Synchronous tools are real-time communication tools, and so some examples I could see myself using would be, of course, web conferencing tools like the BB Collaborate, the chat boxes within, maybe Skype whenever I'm dealing with other people in the community and drawing them in to present to students, kind of that fourth domain in the Danielson framework, and also the interactive whiteboards. I just am, really obsessed with interactive whiteboards, and there's a ton of tools that kind of touch between, they could be synchronous, asynchronous, but they definitely fall under collaboration as well. Asynchronous, these types of activities allow for more reflective and thoughtful responses because there's extended thinking time. So those students that are introverted or less likely to participate in a synchronous session would have more time to think about their response and learn from what they're writing, kind of give more. And examples of that would be, of course, the discussion forums, Google Docs, Google Slides, that would be working on them on their own, possibly online journaling and blogging. And again, these both, synchronous and asynchronous, are incorporated under collaboration, and I have that written there. It enhances communication and it helps to develop 21st century skills. Some examples there would be blogging, concept mapping, using Padlet, Poplet, things like that. They've talked about gamification. I would love to use the breakout groups. That would be a big thing, and I could check in with students. I'd like to play around more with that and see the benefits of doing that in different LMS services. Social networking, and there were just way too many tools for me to list there. Pretty much everything that we examined in Module 5. So there's that. Special considerations for management and assessment. I think it's important to make sure that you have clear, purposeful, and relevant activities or tools, right? They need to be relevant for students to take them seriously and for them to be meaningful. And a question I would ask myself is, am I at the focal point? Because my role is to guide students to deeper levels of understanding. I shouldn't be the main focus. Another important thing to take into consideration is to take time to learn new tools, making sure that you are ready to share them with students and clearly model how to use them. Also, modeling higher order thinking skills. Not all students know how to deal with those types of questions, so we need to model those. Teaching netiquette, Rice talks about that on page 126. Model and provide examples of expected discussion posts. It talks about managing and assessing discussion posts. They need to be modeled. You need to set clear expectations. And they said assessing them, Rice focused on quantity, correct grammar, and quality, and all of those should be set forth with clear expectations at the beginning. And also providing students with a schedule that goes with the expectations, giving them choice, a nice time frame of when they can do it, just making sure they know kind of when it needs to be done. Quickly moving on, I'm about to run out of time. My ahas about teaching. Rice talks about it takes a village. You don't think about the number of people in an online setting, just like in a regular school district, that it takes to ensure that students are going to be successful. The time constraints. they talk, I think, like, it says don't expect online teaching to be easier than a brick and mortar setting. If not, it's way more difficult. You also need to, if this is something that you're considering, you need to be flexible, challenge yourself, and utilize technology for student learning. And my remaining questions were, what are the demographics of online educators like? Are there newly graduated educators or previous brick and mortar teachers? And